Karen.
Yes.
Do you know what the 9 dimensions of consciousness are?
No.
What? What?
Well, I know what I don't know, and I don't know that.
Well, that's good. Well, have you ever heard of starseed grid?
I've heard of star seeds.
But not the starseed grid.
Not the grid.
Okay. Well, you've certainly heard of 5D New Earth.
Yes, that I have heard of.
Okay. Well, 2 out of 3 is not bad.
Wow.
It's good. That's good because the episode today is perfect for those seeking a deeper connection to their spirituality. And we're going to be diving into topics like multidimensionality, 5D ascension, the 9 dimensions of consciousness, and channeling the Pleiadians.
Ooh.
Uh-huh.
That
Don't
sounds like
go.
fun.
It is. Don't go anywhere because the Skeptic Metaphysician starts now.
My name is Will.
And I'm Karen.
And unlike Mulder and Scully,
we both want to believe.
so we've embarked on a journey of discovery.
We've talked to people deeply entrenched in the spiritual and metaphysical world.
We've thrown ourselves into weird and wonderful experiences. I even joined a coven of witches.
And wait, you joined a coven?
Yep, all in the interest of finding something
Anything.
that will prove that there's something beyond this physical,
three-dimensional world we all live in.
This is the Skeptic Metaphysicians.
Hey, this is Will with a big question for you. Have you checked out the Skeptic Metaphysicians Inner Circle yet? I mean, if you like the show and the guests that we bring on, then you're definitely want to be a part of this. See, the Inner Circle is absolutely free to join, and it gives you an opportunity to not only interact with Karen and I, but you'll also be able to engage with fellow listeners like yourself. Think of it as our own little support community. Now, community not really your thing? No worries. In our Inner Circle, you'll also find tons of discounts for services from some of our past guests so that you can check them out for yourself to see which path makes the most sense for you. But that's not all. We're also going to be doing a lot of great giveaways, like free sessions from some of our guests. You can gain access to behind-the-scenes videos, even get the chance to be on the show with us. All the while, you'll be helping the show grow by letting people know about us. And did we mention it's 100% free? No hidden gotchas or ulterior motives, just plain community building and audience building, and our way of saying thanks to you. Sound interesting? We thought so. Now, check out our show notes for the link to our Inner Circle and join today, and then drop in and say hello and tell us what episode you heard this on. We might just give you a shout out on the show. Hey, thanks for listening, and hope to see you soon. Welcome to the Skeptic Metaphysicians. I'm Will.
And I'm Karen.
And today we are thrilled to introduce our guest, Will Caminada. Now, he's a multidimensional guide, a Pleiadian channel, and an advocate of 5D ascension into the new Earth. He's also a breathwork facilitator, a meditation expert, a singer-songwriter, and the author of From Darkness to Light, A Continuous Journey Towards Your Essence. Now, his primary mission is to provide support to fellow starseeds and lightworkers during the current process of ascension, and he collaborates with the Pleiadians, who are star beings assisting humanity on this transformative journey. He channels messages from his higher self, a Pleiadian being in Taijeta, and I have no idea if I just butchered that name, but I will let us know, and of 9D collective Pleiadians. He aims to deliver grounded insights for individuals consciously walking the path of ascension and embracing their multidimensionality. And I couldn't be more thrilled to welcome to the show my namesake, Will Caminada. Will, such a pleasure to have you on the show.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. This is an awesome introduction. Thank you.
So it sounds like you have a lot of free time now.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I think the Pleiadians keep you busy. We have a lot to talk about, but the burning question that I asked Karen at the very beginning of this whole thing, because I had never heard of it either, is the 9 levels of consciousness. Is that right? Did I get that right?
Yeah. The 9 dimensions of consciousness, and you could see them as levels of awareness or levels of consciousness.
Okay. So I know that I am conscious, but I only know one level, one dimension of consciousness.
Well, I don't know. Sometimes when you drink a little too much,
You get
to the second level.
I might have 2, maybe 3 on the outset, but how are there 9 levels of consciousness?
Yeah. Oh, I love what you said. Yes, you are consciousness. We are all consciousness. Consciousness for me is all there is. I mean, some people call it the source, God, the universe. Everything is consciousness having some experience. So you are consciousness having the experience of Will Rodriguez, and I am consciousness having the experience of Will Caminada. Karen is consciousness having that experience of Karen. And a dog is consciousness having that experience of dog. So essentially, consciousness is just having experiences through many different dimensions, times, and space. So when you think of consciousness traveling through time and space, through dimensions, universes, planet, even Mother Earth is a being of consciousness having that experience of Mother Earth, then there are different levels to that consciousness. So when you think of a rock, for example, a rock is also consciousness, but it's a low level of consciousness. And when I say low, I don't necessarily mean negative. It's just that it's vibrating at a lower density.
Sure.
And us as human beings, we are multi-dimensional beings, just as we are. And just the fact that we think, we have thoughts, and we have emotions, we feel emotions. So that tells us that we are more than just physical beings, right? Even our inner body, we could see our inner body as our inner dimensions, if you will. And so when we're expressing or experiencing thoughts or feelings, this is also a layer of our multidimensionality, because you can't necessarily see thoughts or you can't necessarily see feelings. They are manifested sometimes as a laughter or as a cry, but we can't see these layers. So that's when we start exploring the subtle layers of our multidimensionality. But then we also have our spirit self. We are also beings of frequency. We are also sacred geometry. So these are all different layers of our consciousness.
Whoa.
So do these 9 layers or levels, do they kind of exist on the same plane, or are you trying to get to the next one and rise, ascend?
Yeah, that's a great question, because from our linear mind, we tend to see things as layers, as next steps, or separate, or we think that they're separated the same way that we think that we are separate, but we're actually all interconnected, because we're all energy, we're all one. So if I'm a sparkle of that one consciousness, and you are a sparkle of that one consciousness too, so we are all connected, right? But they're not as linear as it seems to us. So you're not necessarily layering them as in we have to get to the next step of our evolution, because they are already available. But from a linear perspective, yes, we are moving through those dimensions of consciousness. Essentially, humans have been working through or living under just one dimension, which is the 3D. And the 3D is not necessarily negative or bad, but is limited when you think that you are a multidimensional being. So there is more than just flesh and bones. There's more than just this physical earth, right? So collectively, we're expanding our consciousness and awakening to that reality and realities that we are more than just human beings, even though the humanness in us is also a part of our multidimensionality. And it's an aspect too that sometimes we disregard or take for granted, especially if you are a starseed or a light worker, an empath, and you just feel like your home is in the stars, then you might not be comfortable in this body or in this planet. But actually, it is part of our multidimensionality too. Our humanness is as much as part of our multidimensionality as our spirit.
Okay, so you help people work through these 9 levels. Not work through, but get in touch with the 9 levels or 9 dimensions, right? Is there ever a way to become fully conscious or fully aware of all 9 levels at the same time?
Yes. You are experiencing all these 9 dimensions now. You just need to be aware of them. So I'll give an example. So like I said, when you're thinking and you're feeling your emotions, you're experiencing a 4D, so a 4th dimensional level of awareness, because the fourth dimension is all about the collective mind and emotions. So in us, that's how we experience the fourth dimension, right? So I always try to bring the macro into the micro. So I actually just want to preface this by saying that when we think of multidimensionality, most of us think of that macrocosmic perspective, right? Because we think of the stars or the Big Bang and the galaxies. And yes, it's that too, but everything that's happening in the macrocosmos, it's happening within us because we are the universe manifested into this being. So everything that's happening with Mother Earth, it's happening within us too, right? So Mother Earth has her second dimension, which is her inner world. So nature and elements, everything that's happening under the ground, that's what we call the telluric realm. So that's her second dimension. And equally, we have that too in us. And it works with Mother Earth. Like our gut is an example of that, right? It's like our soil that grows things, right? And digests things too and transforms into energy. So this is also an example of how we're experiencing the second dimension without doing anything. So you just become aware of it. And so when we bring that macrocosmic perspective into our selves, then we start realizing that we are layered beings, and these layers are represented by our multidimensionality. So when we are experiencing thoughts and feelings, we're experiencing the fourth dimension. When we are moving our bodies, just being here in this linear time and space that is 3D, we're experiencing the 3D. Collectively, we are moving into the 5D. And the 5D is the realm of love and unity consciousness and oneness, right? So this is what we experience collectively, but also within us, because it all starts within us. So when we awaken, when we start healing, when we start expanding our consciousness, when we open our hearts, we activate our heart chakras, that's when we start loving ourselves. So that's an example of you experiencing 5D consciousness, having compassion, having forgiveness for yourself first, so that you can extend that into others and seeing everyone as an extension of yourself. That is an experience of 5D consciousness.
So those first, 2 through 5 makes sense to me. I'm really curious about 6 through 9, but before we do that, you just struck a chord in me, because everything I know about physics says that the first dimension is a single point. If that is the case, this just hit me. We're constantly trying to get to, when all those of us that meditate and are trying to become one and be at peace, we're trying to get to a single point. We're trying to focus ourselves into a single point, which I guess would then be the first dimension. Is that make sense to you, or is this completely off?
No, it makes total sense. But I'll say that, the dimensions of consciousness concept, if you will, is a slightly different to that concept, that the one dimension is the single point, and then 2 dimensions. It's more about the level of awareness or the level of consciousness.
Gotcha.
In each dimension. And so the first dimension, and this is according to the Pleiadians, so that's a channeled material from the Pleiadians by Barbara Hanklau. There's a book called The Alchemy of 9 Dimensions of Consciousness. And she channeled that information from the Pleiadians. And now that I'm also working with them, so we're expanding that information. And in my program, The Multidimensional Self, I take people on a journey through all these dimensions. So we start talking about what is the first dimension here on Earth or in our galaxy, and then where is this in us? So the first dimension would actually be the very center of Mother Earth, which is a giant iron core crystal. And that is like the beginning of Mother Earth, if you will, which is very much related to the 9th dimension, which is the black hole, because the black hole, which is the center of the Milky Way, is the beginning and end of the Milky Way. So it's where everything started and everything has been created from that black hole, but it directly connected to the first dimension. And it's as if there is this vertical axis from the ninth dimension, the black hole, into the very center of Mother Earth. And that is gravity too. So as this vertical axis moves down, spirals down into a more dense level, if you will, because as it moves down, there's more gravity, there's more density. And so the very center of Mother Earth is the densest of the dimensions because it's the beginning of the formation of Mother Earth. But that's also interesting because it's a crystal, it also holds the information of the galaxy and of the origins of Mother Earth. And the first dimension in us, it's also the crystalline structure within us. So we could say, for example, that our blood, which has iron, is our first dimension. We have tiny crystals in our pineal gland. That's also related to our first dimension. We are always in touch with the first dimension because there's gravity, right? We're here, we're able to sit here and stand here because there's gravity. So that in itself connects you to that first dimension.
This is one of the things I love about this show. There's so much out there that we know nothing about, and yet so many people know so much about that when we have people like you who talks about the 9 dimensions of consciousness, a lot of people listening to this show might already have known about this, listened to us and went, oh, they don't, poor things. They don't know about the 9 dimensions, right? And then there's another part of our audience who is listening to this and going, there's 9 dimensions in consciousness. That's kind of, so sometimes we bring people on and we are fully aware of what we're talking about, and other times we have no idea. And so the potential for both sides to come and learn from this, from people like you, is wonderful. We're learning an awful lot, and those that already know about the 9 dimensions hopefully will be learning also, because they'll be able to put things more in perspective or things like that, or it'll be a reminder. So I love that you came on and taught us something new. So thank you for that. First and foremost.
And I love podcasts like yours because I learn so much too. And I know that the more I learn, there's more that I don't know. So that's great.
Well, that's very true. I didn't even know. Are we supposed to focus on a single point when we meditate? I mean, that explains a lot. I've been doing it wrong. I thought we were supposed to like, no?
I mean, it depends. Everyone does it differently, I would say. Honestly.
Okay. I just thought I was doing it wrong.
I just know that sometimes for me, I need that concentration. Without that concentration, I get lost in my thoughts. So I try to focus on a single point. But.
So I have a question kind of going very back to the beginning, and it's going to sound, I don't know, like I'm being sarcastic or facetious, and it's not. This is just a genuine, I'm just, something that you mentioned, you were talking about consciousness and how even a rock has consciousness. So if we as humans are multidimensional and we are trying to evolve and trying to increase and expand our consciousness, is the rock trying to do that as well?
It's a very good question.
That's my partner. That's why she's on the show.
I would say no, because the rock would be more operating more from maybe a first and a second dimension or level of awareness. And so it doesn't have a mind of its own. It doesn't have feelings or thoughts. It can't self-realize, right?
Okay.
And we can do this. But what can happen is, I don't know. I don't know if I can say that a rock can die and reincarnate as a human or as an animal, but for sure animals so the animal kingdom, that can happen too, because even though they might not necessarily be able to self-realize, to know that they're animals and to make sense of their feelings and why they are here, they have a level there. They are in the 3rd dimension. They're very connected with the 2nd dimension, which is related to nature, but they can die and reincarnate as another animal or as a human being. So compared to the rock and compared to the animals, we are more evolved beings, and we are actually very evolved beings because we have the potential to expand our consciousness and really understand why we're here, and become, again, a part of that galactic team, right? So that's where we're heading towards as a collective as well, Mother Earth too. So it's like it's regaining and remembering that we too are part of the universe and the galaxy.
So I wonder if dogs are like the next level as humans, because they have that capacity to that unconditional love, you know, and if
Yeah.
that's one of their goals, maybe then they, you know, then they come back and they're human and it's like, oh, this is what I wanted.
Right.
Yeah, but you know, that to your point, yes, animals, they do bring a certain frequency to the planet. And so we humans interact with them. And even if we don't interact with them, so I've always been obsessed with whales. I've always felt a deep connection with them. And I've learned that they are on planet Earth to bring higher frequencies and to bring higher consciousness. So even though we don't have whales as pets, we shouldn't.
Oh, I was gonna say maybe
Big pool.
you don't, but maybe we do.
Yeah, I did, but it was a stuffed animal. But essentially, they are here. For me, they are very extraterrestrial, and they come from Sirius or Orion, but they come here to anchor that high frequency because they have a very high level of consciousness. And so different animals bring different frequencies. And yes, dogs have that unconditional love that a lot of us need to learn. And that makes me believe that that's one of the reasons why a lot of humans have dogs as pets, because they bring that frequency to themselves too. And hopefully that awakens that self-love, that unconditional love within us.
Wow, you just made me very sad.
Why?
Because then I start thinking about all those dogs are trained to attack. They're actually training the love, their true selves out of them. That makes me sad.
Well, maybe they're doing it because they love the person that's training them.
Yeah, but there's still dogs have unconditional love, and so if they are loving and they're trained to not love, but rather to attack, that's a sad thing. I just got sad.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
All right, so we've touched on all the levels except for 6, 7, and 8. Any snippets that you can give us real quick as to what those might be?
Yeah, sure. When we sort of move from the 5th dimension up, it's basically just fun to explore what these dimensions are, because the 5D is really the key and the portal to experiencing and exploring higher dimensions and higher levels of awareness. And 5D is very much related to the heart chakra and the higher heart. So, and that's also what Mother Earth is focusing more on over the last few years, and continues to do so. And we too as individuals. So when you start activating that heart chakra, basically even our upper chakras, they start to activate as well. So you don't have to do much to activate your throat chakra and your third eye, your crown chakras. It's very much the work on the heart. The heart is really the portal, and the Pleiadians always say that your heart is your multidimensional tool. And so when we get to experience more of that 5D consciousness, then we just experience these higher dimensions. So 6D is all about sacred geometry and creating divine creativity. So we are also sacred geometry because we've been designed to be humans. And so the 6D is related to sacred geometry, which is also a topic that a lot of people study and even heal also a lot by exploring sacred geometry. And then the 7th dimension is all about sound and frequency. It reminds us that we are beings of frequency, we are beings of sound, and that sound is not just the sound of my voice that you can hear, but also the sound of my thought and my intentions and what I'm sending out into the universe. And sound is how light travels through the universes too, and through the galaxy. And that's what the 8th dimension is, the realm of light. And so when you think of 8, 7, and 6, so the 8D is the realm of light. So light as a photon that starts to vibrate, becomes frequency, becomes sound. So that's light creates sound, and then sound actually creates sacred geometry too. There's this study called cymatics. If anyone goes on YouTube and types cymatics, you will see how the frequency starts to create this perfect sacred geometry on a plate. I think there's like sand or salt, and you see just the perfection of sacred geometry that's created by frequency, and different frequencies also create different shapes and formats. So that's, in a nutshell, that's what they are.
With all of your experience, would you say that people kind of flip flop between the different levels, or like you? I mean, are you like in the, sixth or seventh dimension most of the time? Like, I want to know.
Yeah, I would say that we mostly, as humans right now, we're all mostly oscillating between the 3D, 4D, and 5D. Because when you awaken, you break through the so-called matrix, 3D matrix, and then you start that journey of self-realization and healing, and then you start exploring more of that 4D. And the 4D is connected to that duality that we experience in 3D, but also connected to that non-duality that we experience in 5D. So it's a very interesting, very complex dimension too. And so according to the Pleiadians, most humans right now are in 4D. And so that's good news, because that means we're heading towards 5D, even though 5D is not necessarily a destination. It looks like, the way I'm speaking, it looks like it is. But as a collective, we are experiencing more of 4D level of awareness. And that is positive, because that means there's a lot of potential for us to experience more of that 5D consciousness. But currently, we will oscillate between these three. And it goes, I see it more as a moment-to-moment thing. So you might be in traffic and you might be really angry and you might be really judgmental.
Hey,
and
there's a camera in my car.
That's like 0 Ds.
Yeah, so
you're not supposed to be watching me.
Yeah, so that's not really a 5D experience. That's more of literally a 3D experience. But you might then get home and just, I don't know, connect with your heart, relax, meditate. That's more of a 5D experience. But any experience can be different. And if you go for a walk, for example, in the park or in nature, you could have a wonderful, blissful 5D experience of being in the moment with Mother Nature, and just having visions and just feeling one with the birds and the flowers. But you could also just be thinking about all the stuff that you need to do and just have your mind really scattered and busy. That's more of a 3D experience. But you could have both experiences, like, in different times in the same event. But I think that the key is the level of awareness, and how much you're aware of your thoughts, how much you're aware of these moments, of the experiences. Because someone who is more in the 3D level of awareness, they will not have that, even that, and I say this without judgment, but they will not have that awareness to reflect even on the moment. They might not even know what it feels like to be present.
They might not be aware that they're being so judgmental all the time and angry.
Yeah, but like I said, you could go both, like two people can go into the same walk and have different experiences, and that the experience will be according to the level of consciousness that they are in. So you could see it as something more general, like, I am aware that those moments were not very 5D, and I'm okay with it because I love myself and I forgive myself. So, that's also an aspect of 5D, bringing that compassion, that self-love. But someone else might have the same experience, and then they might not reflect on it. They'll just be on that loop. So Yeah, does that make sense?
It does.
Yes.
It's
It
more
does.
general, but you
Yep.
can also pinpoint
Completely. And I was somewhat serious in as much as when I've been judgmental and angry and flipping people off in the car, I've been very much in the 3D and not actually conscious that I'm not actually being in the 3D until later you go, ooh, I probably shouldn't have flipped that guy off. Not because I'm afraid for my life, but rather I should have been a more loving person,
Mhm.
right? So in the moment, you lose that consciousness, you lose that connection to that consciousness, and then later on, hopefully, you'll reconnect and realize, oops, moving on, right? That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
So many questions. You bring up so many questions. I got so much to talk to you about. We're definitely not going to have enough time for all of it. However, I do want to dive into a couple other things with you. Once we come back, we got to take a break. But when we get back, I want to talk to you about the fact that you channel the Pleiadians. And we're going to talk about that a little bit. And maybe you can give us some hints as to how to connect into some of those higher dimensions, how to connect into the 5D so that we can ascend into that 5D consciousness that everyone talks about, right?
Sure.
Stay with us because when we come back, Will's going to answer all those questions and so much more
Woohoo.
on the Skeptic Metaphysicians. So this was a fun 5-star review that we got on Apple Podcasts. It's from a Kiwi in Ireland. And I got a chuckle out of it, so I got to share it with you. The topic of the review is why 5 stars with a question mark? Well, Kiwi in Ireland goes on to explain why. The first star, well, it's fantastic, variable, eye-opening content and guests. The second star, open-minded yet questioning. The third star for being fun and entertaining, intense content delivered with a chuckle. The fourth star, it's easily relatable hosts, respectful and engaging. I struggle with the same aspects as Will, and I appreciate the self-deprecating humor and candidness. And the fifth star, free of lotus flowers, rainbows, and unicorns. The metaphysical delivered in a way anyone can grasp. Kiwi in Ireland, thank you, thank you, thank you. You really see us, and I really appreciate that. Everything you said, that's exactly what we're going for. So I'm thankful that you have felt it and that you took the time to write it out so eloquently so that others that are looking for shows like this can actually see that this show might be kind of cool. So if you'd like to hear your review read on the air, just go to Apple Podcasts like Kiwi in Ireland did and leave us a 5-star review and go a long way towards providing social proof for those that are looking for this type of content. All right, Kiwi, thank you once again for taking the time to leave us this review on Apple Podcasts. It really made our day. Now let's get back to the show. Welcome back to the Skeptic Metaphysicians. Today, did I say Skeptic Metaphysicians?
You did.
I did.
That's exactly what you said.
Welcome back to the Skeptic Metaphysicians. Yeah, that's that's the name of our new show.
Well, we just got back from Denmark. Maybe that's how they say it in Denmark. You're practicing your Danish.
That it makes us crazy kind of sense to me. I don't know what it is.
Yeah,
but,
I don't know.
all right. No, really. Welcome back to the Skeptic Metaphysicians. We are thrilled to be talking to Will Caminada here, who is a channeler of the Pleiadians. He's also a multidimensionality guide. And we've been diving into the levels or dimensions of consciousness. And I've been learning a lot. Before we move into those other facets or those other dimensions of Will Caminada, can you give us a little bit of an idea? Now, we talked about all these other dimensions of consciousness, but how can someone who is really wanting to connect with the 5D, to be more living in the 5D, how can someone do that and stay in that consciousness as long as possible? What's the best way? What's your best tip?
I would say that the desire to be in 5D as much as possible might be a little bit disappointing because
don't burst my bubble, Will.
I'm sorry. Just because, yes, it's absolutely possible, but like I said, we're oscillating between 3D, 4D, 5D, and it's okay, because if you want to set an appointment, schedule an appointment with your dentist, or we schedule a meeting here, that's part of the 3D, right? We need to have that ego functioning so that we are able to schedule things, and we are able to look at our past and collect data and learn from it. We're able to plan things for the future.
But we could love our dentist. I don't, but we could, right? So that could be more of
Depends
a
on the dentist.
5D. So
Yeah.
while you're setting the appointment with the dentist, you could love setting an appointment with the dentist. Like come at the appointment from love.
But I think yes, but I think like every once in a while, and I don't, every once in a while I get like that whole love feeling, right? Like I feel it in my skin. And I'll just like it feels like my body's vibrating almost. It's just awesome.
No,
and if I was like that all the time, I wouldn't get anything done.
That's just the gas from the dentist. It makes me vibrate too.
Yeah, but that's an experience too, and you're
Yeah.
experiencing that because of many things, maybe fear or trauma or just like body sensations,
Mhm.
and that's part of your 3D aspect, right? And I think you experience 5D when you allow yourself to be human and to really enjoy all aspects of your humanness,
Gotcha.
even when you're angry or frustrated or judgmental, or allow yourself to feel your feelings, your emotions, whether you're sad or joyful, and learn to not judge the emotions too. And basically the 5D, even though yes, it's the realm of love and oneness, unity consciousness, unity within yourself, even accepting yourself, but it's also very much related to the aspect of neutrality, because when you love what is, that doesn't mean that you're enjoying what is, but it means you accept what is. And so when
Right.
you love the part of yourself that maybe you don't necessarily enjoy or you don't necessarily like, that means you're giving light to that aspect of yourself. And that is the 5D level of awareness, is having
Right.
that perspective that is higher than your ego, that is higher than the 3D. And so loving all of you, all parts of yourself, loving the experience of being human in this time and space. And again, loving from that space that is more of a neutral space. That doesn't mean you're apathetic toward life. It just means that you accept things as they are, you accept the experience. And so the more that you do that in your day-to-day life, the more that you will experience that 5D. But it won't necessarily be that you're always blissful, that you're always connected with your higher self. In the future, yes, that's what we might look like. But right now, we're still in the shift, through the shift. So that's why we're experiencing these different dimensions of consciousness, and sometimes all at once.
Gotcha. So basically, don't beat yourself up when you fall back into 3D, because it's all part of the experience we're going through right now.
Yeah, and honor the 3D experience as much as you honor that you want to be more in that 5D, but not thinking that 5D is better or worse. And I think that's because that's part of our 3D ego perspective, and because the 3D is all about duality and yes, judging and labels. And so then we tend to label things and evaluate things as good or bad, worse or better. But when you start to tap into that 5D consciousness more, you can still see things as good or bad, but you know that that is your 3D self observing that event or that thing or that person. And so maybe in other words, I could say that you experience more of that 5D consciousness when you have more awareness of yourself, when you're more tuned in with that higher aspect of yourself. That's the observer self. That's your higher self, you could say, that is more neutral, that sees you from that higher perspective and doesn't judge you. And so that you're more and more connected to that, so that through through time and through practice and through experience, you become more one with your higher self.
It looked like you had a question. I cut you off. So.
I know, but it's gone now. I don't remember what it was. It was a good one too.
Well,
probably. Maybe it wasn't a good one. I don't remember.
Sorry.
That it could have been a terrible question. So
see-
maybe, you know, everything happens the way it's supposed to. So maybe you were supposed to cut me off because it was such a bad question. I didn't need to ask it.
Wow. You just went from 3D to 5D in a matter of a split second.
But I have another question. So have you personally experienced 6 or 7 or even 8D?
Yes, I would say that we experience that mostly when we're having a deep meditation, having those altered states of consciousness. And I take people through those journeys. So usually I work more with breath work and guided journeys, guided meditations, because the breath work really helps you to release any stagnant energy. You clear the channels. Sometimes you cry, sometimes you stomp your feet. So it's very good to release that. Can be very cathartic. And then after that, clearing that release, you become so much more connected to your subconscious mind, to your heart, and to your spirit. And you're able to have more of those altered state of consciousness. Actually, breath work releases DMT, which gives you that psychedelic experience, almost like when you have, I don't know, mushrooms, or when you have an ayahuasca ceremony, but you do that with your breath, and you know, you don't have, your breath is your breath, and it's absolutely.
And the side effects are way easier.
And it's less expensive.
Right, way less expensive, right?
Expensive. You can do it in your bedroom, you know.
I am a big proponent of breath work. I love it. I have not done much of it, but when I have, holy cow. It was amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing what, you know, you can do with your breath. But all of that to say too, that then you're so much more in touch with that subtler part of yourself, so that, you know, the guided meditations or the journeys can really take you to those visions and to those feelings of connecting with your spirit guides, with your higher self, of traveling through the astral realm. And so that's when I would say you experience more of those higher levels of consciousness. You experience more of maybe like telepathy, for example, when you connect with your guides, with your higher self. That in itself would be a 7-8D experience, if you will, because then you're connecting through sound with the higher realms, but you're not necessarily speaking. So these are moments that I personally see as, you know, experiencing those higher dimensions.
There has been, I've made this one guy or this one gal wait all this time. You know, there's that one person out there who is like, Will Rodriguez, you butchered a word in the introduction when you were talking about the Pleiadians. And it was, I got to find out how badly I did it. Was it Taigia? What was the name? What was that?
I say Taigeta. Or
see?
Taigeta.
I did butcher it. So thank you, or you're welcome, the person that's listening and trying to.
Glad it wasn't me.
But you know what? There are people that say differently, especially like the other names of the 7 sisters as well. To be honest, I don't know which one is right, but so
okay,
it's all good.
So then what is that exactly?
So the Pleiades is a star cluster, right? So the most famous stars are the seven stars, the 7 sisters. There are different myths as well around the 7 sisters, from Greek myths and to Japanese myths. But basically, there are more than 7 stars in the Pleiades cluster. And so one of the stars is called Taigeta. And so, but Taigeta is not necessarily a planet. So it's a star, and around there are planets. So
gotcha.
Like another example is Alcyone, which again, some people say it differently, but Alcyone is one of the 7 sisters, or the seven stars, sisters. But Alcyone is the central sun of our neighborhood galaxy, Andromeda galaxy. And so around Alcyone, there are planets as well. So just so that you can see how big it is. But we're talking about star clusters and stars. So there are planets around the stars too.
Is it like our sun with the planets around it?
Yes. So our sun, which we can call our central sun, is actually very much connected to Alcyone, and they exchange information. So Alcyone sends information to our sun sends information to Earth and to the planets here in our solar system. And this is how we receive information or light codes with new information for us to continue through this process of ascension. So you might have heard that recently we've been blasted with solar flares, and that affects Mother Earth, but that also affects us, because then we are receiving more of those light codes that we are ready to receive, because before we weren't so much ready. And the same applies to us as individuals too.
Right.
Or if you're ready to receive, and if you're open, you're going to receive it a lot. And that's good, because that's going to accelerate your expansion of consciousness. It can also be a little bit overwhelming, because then your body needs time to adjust and to integrate. So it's a constant cycle of evolution, basically, that we're going through.
Wow.
So the beings that you channel are from that star cluster, right?
Yeah. So I discovered this actually by doing, because I do group sessions and I also work one-on-one, and we get a lot of questions, and many questions that I never thought of asking myself. And so I discovered that because somebody asked, like, about who are these beings, and basically that's what they said. What we said is that I channel my higher self, which is a Pleiadian being from Taygeta, from that star. But I also, because sometimes I feel like it's a collective group. So the collective consciousness, it doesn't feel like it's one being. It feels more like it's a collective. And then they present themselves as 9D collective Pleiadian.
When you channel them, because we've had channelers on the show before, do they completely take over? Do they just send you information that you can access right away? How does that work for you?
Yeah, it's a process. I say that channeling is a journey, and I get very excited talking about this. And actually today we started, I have a course called Introduction to Channeling. It's a 3-module, 3-week course. Today was the first day of the group, so very fresh, and I love talking about it, because I also like to demystify some things about channeling. And I say, the very first lesson, I say, you are already channeling. Like you channel all the time. Maybe you don't call it channeling, you're not aware that you're channeling, but this is happening when you're having an idea, when you have that intuitive nudge to call somebody, to do something, to make a decision, when you're having that inner guidance that is so loud, and you just know that this is the path. These are moments that you're channeling, right? But I also believe that because channeling is becoming, I want to say more natural, like maybe 10 years ago or 20 years ago, it wasn't that you wouldn't see many people channeling, or you wouldn't even talk much about channeling. I mean, it was already happening. These books that I mentioned, they were channeled in the 90s or late 80s. So it's been happening, but I also believe that it's changing, because in the past, I feel like it was more of a ritual. It was more of like, oh, that person has the gift or is a special, and they would go into a very deep trance, almost as if being possessed. So it was kind of that feeling. And I feel like that's becoming a little outdated. I feel like more and more we will be so much in touch with our multidimensionality, with the spiritual world, because I feel like the veil is thinning. The walls are breaking, and so we're getting more and more access, and it's just becoming a more natural thing. So the same way that, I don't know, we're talking here, connecting, and you're listening to me, I'm listening to you, and we're speaking. I feel like, and that's also a message that the Pleiadians keep giving, that this will be the norm in the future. Like, we'll be communicating telepathically amongst ourselves and with our higher self, with our spirit guides team, because that's a skill that it's inherent to us as human beings, as multidimensional beings, but we forgot that we had those skills. So those skills, I mean the psychic skills, psychic abilities, right? So the same way that you can see with your eyes, or you can hear with your physical ears, you can also see with your inner eye, with your third eye. You can hear with your telepathic communication skills. And so more and more that's going to be awakened, and that's already happening for a lot of us. And so when you have that awareness, then you can practice and you can develop that. And I forgot your question initially, because I think I went on
no,
a different direction.
it's really interesting. What I'm getting from you is that it's more of an inner like a knowing. Like, it doesn't alter you. The question was, do you get altered? Do you, like, how does that? Do you go into a trance? Like, you did answer it to the point where maybe it's getting outdated. That trance thing is moving away, and it's more about living in the moment of channeling, as going in and out of it. So it's not like you're not being altered, but rather you're just living in it. That's kind of a cool thought.
Yes, and that's what I feel today. Like, when I'm channeling, it doesn't feel like I'm being taken over, or I'm changing my voice or anything, like we're changing my body. It does feel like I'm shifting frequencies, and so I'm more in the moment. It's almost as if I disconnect,
Right.
and I don't hear the cars on the street or the dogs barking, and that doesn't take me out of my presence. It just feels like I'm becoming one with my higher self, or with those guides. And today I'm able to shift that frequency more quickly, and also sometimes even during the day, I just feel like I might be talking, and messages are just coming through. Even in this conversation, I feel like sometimes it's like my higher self speaking, and I'm just being the channel, and that's what I foresee for all of us in the future. But that was I had to go through a process to get to today, and I also see channeling as a journey, and you are on a journey as much as I am, and so then you experience different practices, and then you get to experiment as well, what works for you, what doesn't work. For me, again, the breathwork practice for me was the meditation too, but the breathwork practice, the sound practice as well. I work with sounding with my voice and with tuning forks. So these are tools that have helped me to connect more deeply with my guides and with my higher self. And I shared this story today in the course, because there was a time that I wanted to do my breathwork solo practice. So I would breathe for 20-30 minutes, then I would receive the message, and then I would get out of that state, then I would type the messages that I got, and then I would record the messages, and that's how I started sharing my channeled messages. But that was like a lot of work. And one session, they were like, that you don't have to do all of this. Like, you can just set the intention and take a few deep breaths, and we're there.
So it's cool, because then it's almost like normalizing this whole thing, right? Making it normal, where when this stuff started coming out, it's almost like the universe had to get our attention. Look at this fantastic thing, right? And then You get caught up in like the spectacle of it, and look, the channel gets altered and it's like super mysterious. And now we don't have that need. Now, because we're shifting more into the 5D consciousness, it becomes more normal. And now that whole magnificence doesn't have to be so magnificent. It could just be normal.
Well, we have spoken though with quite a few channelers that do transform, and it's amazing. I mean, it's just the first time we were like, "Oh, this is weird," but then
the first several times,
yeah. But now it's like, "Oh, go ahead, go," because I'm ready for questions,
Right.
But I think it's really interesting saying, basically you just need to recognize it. Right? We have this in us, but we need to recognize for what it is. That gut instinct. Everyone's always telling you, go with your gut. It's not just your gut talking to you. It's your higher conscious or your super conscious.
Right.
Maybe you're channeling.
I mean, your gut is right. That comes from your higher self. So that's trust your gut is because you're trusting your higher self. Yeah. I mean, that makes great sense for you.
Yeah. And there are different types of channeling too. And there are different methods too that people get to that frequency shift. So I'm not like disregarding the people that go through that process, because everyone has one specific process. But even like if you're maybe painting, that can be you channeling too, you writing a book or writing a song or singing. Definitely
writing. Yeah.
These are all moments of channeling.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're just about out of time. Will, this has been incredible. I know we've got more conversations ahead of us because we didn't touch on everything I wanted to talk about. So we'll have to get you back on the show again. But before we go, someone wanted to reach out to you, wanted to learn from you, wanted to read about your book. We didn't get a chance to talk about your book. What's the best way for someone to reach out to you and learn more about you?
Oh, thank you. This has been so fun. I'm really grateful to be here, and I'll come back anytime. This is really fun. I think the best way is to go to my website. It's willcaminada.com, and Caminada is Caminada, and you'll find all the links to my socials and my community, and I have a podcast too. And if you like Instagram, then you can find me on Instagram as well. I have 2 channels. One is my own, it's Gui Will, so it's GUI Will, and the other one is Pleiadian Channel, which is an Instagram that I post daily messages from the Pleiadians, so you get channel messages every day, and people seem to be really enjoying that channel too.
Very cool.
Check that out.
You got 2 new subscribers for that. Absolutely.
Thank you.
So we're going to add direct links to some of those in our show notes. So if you missed any of that, just go to skepticmetaphysician.com, go to Will's episode page, and you will see those links laid in there. So it's easy for you to get in touch. So Will, once again, such a pleasure meeting you. We look forward to staying in touch.
Likewise. Thank you so much for having me.
And a huge thank you to you. We know that there are tons of options out there, and having you decide to come along on our journey of discovery with us is an absolute honor for us. We'd love for you to contribute by sending us a voicemail or an email from our website, or leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or any other podcasting platform that supports them. Karen and I love hearing from those that are moved to message us. It truly does fuel our passion. You are the reason we do this show, and knowing what you like and don't like help us craft the very best show we can so that we can help raise the vibration of the planet together. Well, that's all for now, but we'll see you on the next episode of The Skeptic Metaphysician. Until then, take care.